Amazing stuff. That's really proved to bring him some confidence. Of course, Danny Neo running 10th in the championship. I think if you looked at his results in terms of, a graph, the only word I can really describe it is stonks. It has just gone from very, very low down in Silverstone, where he finished 17th, and of course he's finished 5th, and now he put himself in the hot seat for a potential win. And of course he would love to go on and put himself in the hat of race winners that have been crowned here on the Crown Racing Series, and just kind of close up the season that has already seen minimal margins this season.
Quite surprising though, Joop de Vos, 3rd in the championship, down in 11th and some 0.8 of a second away from pole position. That is really surprising to see for the Dutch racer, the 22-year-old, who has come so close to winning. Won on the road in Fuji, but took a 2-place penalty post-race, and of course started the last lap in Daytona in the lead, but his need to fuel save ended up dropping him to 3rd position on that final lap, behind Hovsen and behind Peterson as well. So he's going to have some work to do from 11th on the grid. This is a track you can overtake on, but surely from the 6th row of the grid is going to be struggling to fight up at the front, I would have thought. And something tells me, Adam, that we're going to be seeing some very similar style of racing to what we saw at Daytona. Lots of slipstreaming and probably a lot of fuel saving as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You're on the throttle for a lot of the lap here at Spa-Francorchamps. You've got so many kind of places on the circuit that you're just going to be slamming that throttle down and really biting the fuel. But Danny Neo will be on pole position ahead of Gregory Hovsen. The Canadian will be alongside him on the front row. Balázs Erdely will start in 3rd place alongside David Boschka, the Belgian. What can he do from that 2nd row of the grid? Nikolai Pedersen will be starting in P5 ahead of Luciano Wittvoets. What can he do from P6? He might be one to watch here in his Ferrari. Ryan Wittvoets in the only Corvette on the grid will be alongside Mihai Neg, the Romanian, who's had his struggles this season, but will look to be on his joint best qualifying where he got back at Fuji. Cody Cosford, a familiar position for him, 9th in every single race he's started. He'll be alongside Konrad Kula, the Polish driver. Then the second of the Dutch drivers, Joop de Vos on the 6th row of the grid alongside Alexander Pauleg. What can that German do, who currently runs down there in P12? He'll be alongside his compatriot Igor Kos in 13th. Then we find Andrea Pagnini and Caden Richardson, the American, where he'll find on the 8th row of the grid Federico Alberti, and that will round off our 16-car grid here at Spa-Francorchamps. As you were alluding to, Chris, a lot of fuel saving is going to be going on here. We've had this kind of famous thing, especially in Formula One, where they will just absolutely tow their way. Think back to 2018, it was the 2 racing points with Lewis Hamilton, Sebastian Vettel, who were very much 4 abreast going in towards the Le Gomme chicane. So I don't expect to be that kind of close, but for sure we will see a couple of side-by-side moments, especially on this early lap, if some are deciding to go with that aggressive mentality.
Well, the pace car peels away and the half formation lap begins. And it is very much a battle of the Fords at the front, with the front row once again being locked out by the blue oval. Balázs Erdely in 3rd with his best qualifying of the season as well. 2nd in the championship. And Greg Hovsen on the front row of the grid, 4th in the standings going into this one. We know it can change an awful lot with just one race. 32 points up for grabs for the win. A further 3 available for the fastest lap as well. So keep an eye out on the championship protagonists, particularly Joop de Vos starting outside of the top 10. A reminder, 50 minutes of racing to come. 1 mandatory pit stop for a refuel. And we've seen different strategies throughout the season. The Ford can usually not go quite as far as the Ferrari or the Porsche. And on a circuit like this, having the 1 lap pace is one thing, but having the pace And the fuel mileage as well, well, that's critical too. So we will keep an eye out on that. I remember the 20 incident point limit as well, which we'll also monitor over the course of the race as the cars make their way into formation. So far this season, we've had 4 different pole sitters, 3 different race winners. Will we find our 4th here at Spa-Francorchamps, with Danny Neo starting from pole position for the first time in the Crown Racing Series. The cars bunch up through the bus stop chicane, and as they make their way onto the straight, they will be unleashed. And we go racing. The race for the crown is on at Spa, and David Bosco being squeezed over to the left-hand side. Did he go a little bit too early? But he's side by side with Greg Hoverson. He's on the outside line for La Source, challenging for that second place, but the Ford just manages to squeeze out the Ferrari as they make their way out of that first hairpin. Very neat and tidy stuff. We have seen calamities there in the past in both the real and virtual world. And up Eau Rouge for the first time. Top 3 trying to make a breakaway. Danny Neo leads as they make their way onto the Kemmel Straight for the first time. How long is that going to last, though, with his 4 teammates slipstreaming by here? Hoverson alongside Danny Neo now as they make their way down the Kemmel Straight, and they touch on the way going into the Lake Com chicane for the first time. Hoverson trying to go around the outside. That'll give him the inside line for the next element of the chicane. Brilliant wheel-to-wheel racing here as Neo is still alongside, still holds the advantage, and Hoverson ends up taking grass, and Bosco's off again! Unbelievable! The second race in a row. David Bosco is in the barriers at the end of the opening lap.
So unfortunate there for the home hero. And what's that going to mean for the rest of them? Because look at the Ford having a big old ding-dong battle here. Luciano Wittbold is going to want to get involved in all of this. But where does he put his Ferrari? Well, the answer to that is going to be behind Balázs Erdely. But that was dramatic scenes on that opening lap. What will be going through the head of David Bosco? He's already towed back to the pit. That is 2 DNFs. That's 0 racing laps in the last 2 races for David Bosco. What will the Ferrari driver be thinking? What will be floating around his head right now? But the main focus here is on the action, and we focus here on Andrea Pagnini into P12 already. So he's made up, I believe, a good couple of positions, a couple of kicks of dust being flicked up on towards the windscreens of the GT3 driver. They've pushed their way through. Look at Nikolai Pedersen, who's managed to get ahead of his teammate Gregory Hoverson. So in towards the bus stop they head here, Chris, and it's still at the moment line of stern, but I think there's a fire in the belly for a lot of our drivers.
Incredible scenes on this opening lap. Luc de Vos has been able to make up 4 places from his grid position and is very much in the hunt here because they're still well in a pack, just over a second covering the top 3 as it stands, but only about 4 seconds covering the top 9 cars as they make their way over the timing line at the end of the first lap. It's Danny Neo with about 3/4 of a second in hand over the 2 NGK spark plug Fords, and then the Balázs Erdely car. Luciano Wittvoet showing his best performance since the opening round at Silverstone as well, right up there in 5th position, with ground to make up in the championship as well. 7th in the standings going into this 4th meeting of the season. Everybody line astern still as they make their way into the Lake Com chicane for the second time, and a little bit less drama going on. I believe Mihai Neg was the second car that we saw in the barriers on the exit of the Lake Com chicane through Malmedy on the opening lap, because he is also in the pit lane. Let's see Bosco's view of this. Oh, just gets collected by Hoverson as he rejoins the racetrack. That is going to attract the attention of the independent stewards.
Yeah, we'll have a look once again here. David Bosco just trying to put his car in a certain area, and then that's, again, really unfortunate there for the Belgian driver. He was really looking forward to this race, but yeah, we'll have a look and see what, again, look at the front 2 really going at it, and then I'm not gonna kind of put the blame on anyone there, but you know, it's just, you know, this is the heartbreaking scenes that you see there. David Bosco, he'll try and pull away, but the car is just too broken, too many paces as well, so he decided to go back to the pits. I believe Mihai Neg maybe pulled into the pit lane. I'm not entirely sure, but yeah, I just kind of saw while the back of the pack was heading round around the chicane. Actually, we'll have a look on board with Mihai Neg. He's got a little bit of a tap there on one of his sides, and goes into the side. Is that one of the red and black cars, I believe? I don't believe that's another Ford. We'll have to see from a different angle on that one.
Yeah, not quite sure who the car alongside Mihai Neg was there, but undoubtedly contact that ended up putting him in the wall and into pit lane at the end of the first lap. So a couple of casualties, as we saw, but the rest of the field continues on to lap 3 now. Panini with a good view of the sole Mercedes in this race, which is Caden Richardson, the American driver, in the 82. Let's see how the thumping V8 compares to the flat 6 of the Porsche. Let's see the progression there with Igor Kos making up the most amount of ground, up 6 places from his starting position. Joop de Vos has actually lost a couple of places since we last checked in with him. He's down to 9th position now, 5 seconds off the race lead. So it's still really tight between the whole pack.
Absolutely. It's still pretty much neck and neck between plenty of other cars, and that's going to be that's an off there from Comrade Kula, the Polish driver, who is currently one of the third in the Ferrari queue, but drops the position there to Joop de Vos. So de Vos will be very happy about that. He's changed his livery as well from what we last saw at Daytona. It looks like the Project 26 car of Comrade Kula did have a look up that inside line. We'll get a replay on this. This is on board with Ryan Woodrow. He went to the inside there of Joop de Vos as he tagged the Porsche. Yeah, a little bit of touch there, but managed to just drag him back round. Full spin there from Ryan Woodrow. Ends up in the kitty litter. That's a lighted back up to get back around. So more chaos happening here at Spa. Hopefully not too much damage done to the number 44 of Ryan Woodrow, the only Corvette in the field. But again, Joop de Vos feeling a lot of pressure from behind here.
Yeah, that would explain why Woodrow has dropped to the rear of the field. Only the last car that didn't have calamities on the opening lap. So start of lap 4. Still Danny Neo who leads the way. The Spaniard from Galicia, and leading the 2 NGK Spark Plug Fords that we saw working very nicely together last time out in Daytona, and also in this qualifying session as well. So they are playing ball at the moment. A little bit more happening in the mid-pack as we see Joop de Vos under pressure from Comrade Kula, Alexander Paulik. Just saw him make up those places, and will Kula be able to go through? De Vos defends the position, and so Kula is able to draw just a bit of an overlap, but manages to keep those 2 Ferraris at bay, does the Dutchman. Remember, with work to do, qualified outside of the top 10, 3rd in the championship, and on a podium streak at the moment, even if he will think that he probably should have had a little bit more so far in this championship. So we see the top 4, all Fords, and just starting to gap the first Ferrari there of Luciano Whitvoet in 5th position.
So they head their way into
Anish.
They do, and those Fords are still looking pretty close as ever. And Danny Neo will just be potentially starting to fuel save, because we did speak about it during the qualifying session. That fuel saving will be a factor in this race, but I just wonder if Nikolai Pedersen and Gregory Hoverson might have something to say about that. They worked really hard together, really pushed each other along during the Daytona race, and I wonder, the chemistry is certainly there for the Danish driver and the Canadian driver respectively, but Balazs Erdely, I wouldn't give up on him too easily. But there you can see big coach from Nikolai Pedersen in towards the bus stop chicane. So I think what we can tell from this, Chris, that he's biding his time already. He knows that he's potentially faster here than Danny Neo. We're about to hit a fifth of the race as well, so we've still got a long way into this race. And Neo having a little bit of a lock up there, potentially feeling that there's maybe pressure in behind, but that the Spanish driver will just try and maybe push on. There will be some massive questions in terms of the fuel, in terms of the tyres, and we're just going to have to go whatever the kind of the body positioning of the cars will say. Up toward the Kemmel Straight once again, this famous camera angle has been seen so many times throughout so many different series, and Neo is having to go defensive here. He feels that there's a lot of pressure on him, but on toward the lifting coast. Wow, Gregory Hoverson nearly seemingly running into the back of his teammate as there's bass continuously all over the place, and that Porsche is not looking too healthy, because there goes Comrade Kulad, the Polish driver, getting back past the number 69 black and red Porsche. But I think somebody has a slowdown penalty during the field.
Yeah, Paulik with a slowdown penalty, so just having to take that one. It's his fourth off-track excursion in this race already, and we're only 10 minutes in, so he's going to have to keep an eye out on that. I will say the two cars in second and third putting a lot of faith in one another going into Les Combes, as Peterson really did chop across the front of his teammate. So on board again with Panini in 12th position, and not able to capitalise on that slowdown penalty for Paulik, with Caden Richardson just in front of them as well. And a couple of cars there kicking up some of the gravel on the exit of Stavelot and making their way into the curve Paul Frere. I say, just looking at the live gap, that's really closing up between the top two. So only a couple of tenths of a second, presumably in the slipstream, making their way into the bus stop chicane. They make their way out of there now, and still it is super tight here between Danny Neo, Nikolai Pedersen, Danish supercars racer with Berk Motorsports, and Greg Hoverson, former driver, former race engineer for Exclusive Autosport. And this is the view of Luciano Whitfield, who's got the best view of all those Fords battling in front of him. Doesn't quite seem to be able to get onto the back of them in terms of pure pace, though.
No, he doesn't. We stay on board here with Andrea Pagnini, who's having a great view of the back of him. In real life, used by some really good.
Yeah, so a really great view here from Panini, and it's Paulik who manages to squeeze through on Caden Richardson and take 10th position away from the Mercedes driver, as Igor Kos and Cody Cosford are also squabbling in front of them as well, swapping left, right. And, that's actually because Cody Cosford has got a god-awful internet connection by the looks of it. That's got to be so annoying for Igor Kos. Not really knowing how much he can push in front of him. Now, this has been a recurring issue, sadly, for the young Scotsman. Hopefully, he does manage to find a solution for the two remaining races in this season. That's just got to be the most infuriating thing to see as well, because you don't know how hard you can push it into a braking zone, how close you're actually getting to the car in front. And I know that a iRacer's favourite word is netcode, so hopefully that doesn't become too much of an issue. So the leaders at this point making their way towards the bus stop chicane again, and getting very close again on the timing. May well have even been an overlap there. Hopefully for Igor Kos, it's not going to be too much of an issue now, the blinking, as he does manage to make a move into the bus stop chicane. And see, now he's got to leave a gap for a car he can barely even see at times, and hopefully that will just drive off into the distance. But Igor Kos, another of the walk racing drivers, the blue and purple machine. And I'm very grateful to the walk racing squad for giving such different colours to their drivers. Can't say the same for all teams involved. I say involved because, as we said, no teams necessarily in the Crown Racing Series. Everybody's entered as an individual, but they're usually using liveries from the other championships that they race in. Joop de Vos tries to make up a little bit more ground here, and the recovering Ryan Woodrow usurps Federico Alberti in the Corvette, so that's up to 13th position now for the American, and a bit of a gap to the Panini, Richardson and Paulick battle in front, but that will be to get back inside the top 10. So, into Pouon, or the Double Gauche, as it is sometimes referred to. A lot of the corners here have a sort of English name and a Flemish name as well, because the Rivage right-hander, often referred to as Bruxelles. And leaders making their way towards Blanchimont. And not quite as close this time between this group of Fords. Peterson closing the gap. Now what's interesting is because they would have had to coordinate themselves in Daytona because they were leading, but now they've got a car in between them. Was that Eardley going for the move on Hoverson? It was, and there was a gap on the inside there that now has to shut because Luciano Witvoet will try and walk through it. So Eardley trying to make the move for third position into the bus stop chicane, and in the end, nothing actually changing. But that's the first sign, really, of somebody not just settling in behind someone and actually wanting to make a move. Eardley making that strike, and it very nearly cost them a place to the chasing Ferrari.
It did, and Luciano Witvoet has been very much on the attack. He's been a driver who's had to really try and close up the gap amongst the entire field, because he was a little bit on the back foot for the opening 10 minutes, but he has managed to put himself in the mix of these Ford Mustangs. We now look back to Conrad Kula, who is feeling a little bit of pressure there from Joop de Vos. I'm not entirely sure how the Porsche is really doing, because I believe we have two Porsches in the field, one being Joop de Vos and the other one being Andrea Pagnini, and that they are currently sitting 9th and 12th. So not one of the strongest cars out on the field today. Kula has had a little bit of an up and down kind of season so far. The Polish driver at this moment in time, it's finished 16th, 13th and 13th. So with this result will be a fantastic finish for Conrad Kula. A top 10 would be absolutely amazing for him, but there's still a long way left to go in this one. So for Kula, he's now got to just continue to keep an eye out there for Joop de Vos, the Dutch driver who is, I believe, comes from a cycling background, so very not too dissimilar to four wheels. But there you can see the dust being kicked up by Cody Gosford, who's still blinking away for some of our drivers. So hopefully he can maybe get that sorted either later on in the race or potentially even next race if we are hopeful. But again, I'm still kind of keeping a small eye there on the battle for the top 5, especially Luciano Witvoet, because I do want to ask you, Chris, if you are that Ferrari, maybe potentially feeling you're a little bit slower than these Ford Mustang, but just being kept in touch by the toe, do you decide to potentially pit early, or what would be the plan going forward?
Well, that is an option. I think the Ferrari can actually extend a little bit. So does he wait for the overcut potentially, which does mean you can have a slightly shorter stop as well? And if we're comparing to Daytona, there's a lot more fuel used per lap, so even going one lap further can make quite a significant difference. We saw that with Joop de Vos in the last couple of races. So when they do decide to come in, that's going to play a critical role in this race, I think. So you see WIT Eau Rouge just hanging on to the back of that group of Fords, still in 5th position. But this is the most competitive we've seen the Dutchman since he utterly dominated the first meeting of the season from pole position. The highest I rating on the grid, and we all thought, well, that's probably what the rest of the season's going to look like. Boy, we could not have been more wrong. Meanwhile, Balázs Erdely's done the fastest lap of the race last time around, 2:17.629. Remember, 3 bonus points for that fastest lap. And we've had 3 different drivers set it so far in the 3 races so far this season. He still sits in 4th position following the top 3 cars through Pouan and into the Fagnes chicane. And, or its Flemish name is more Piff Paff, which is sort of Flemish for flip-flop. And then into Stavelot with a long run up towards Blanchimont, where we've seen a bit of drama so far. Peterson's closer than he has been over the last few laps. But of course, identical machinery being used by the top 4. So it's all about the driver inputs because they've all got identical setups on them as well. It's an iRacing fixed setup that everyone uses. And so it's about wit, will, and racecraft. So they go into the bus stop chicane in that same order. And of course, remember, Peterson and Hovsen and Erdely will be saving fuel relative to the race leader, who's been out the front since the start of the race.
I think they have been, and you know, we've spoken about how critical that is. But you know, if you know, some of the fans out at home thinking maybe this is, you know, could be a bit of a dull race, I can assure you this won't be. I've said this multiple times before. It is so classic in esports to have what's called a slow burner. You know, the race kind of starts quite chilled for the opening, but then it starts to gain action as it goes through the phases. And here comes Nikolai Pedersen to just lift off. I thought he was going to go for a move. I think we all did at home. But Pedersen needing to just save some fuel here, because he's probably going to be pitting around about that maybe 35-minute mark. You know, you're probably playing it pretty easy when you go to the 30-minute mark, and then you've got to top your fuel probably all the way to the top, and then you're going to be really trying to play around with it for the last 20. So you're having to get through the early stages right now before then trying to extend through that first stint. And the second stint is just trying to, you know, push as much as you possibly can. This was earlier on. If you missed the start here, this was David Bosker, lap 1, turn 7, gets turned, bang, into the barrier, 2 DNS in the space of 2 races, racing laps 0 in the last 2. That's not going to be a stat that David Bosker is going to be wanting to hear. This is Nikolai Pedersen off onto the gravel there for Gregory Hoverson, and then just turns over the front nose of the Canadian driver. And that's how Nikolai Pedersen right now sits in P2 at the minute. We'll have to see what you can see Hoverson there just getting a little bit too wide, sticks, and wow, I'm not going to say where he's not going to say where he was pointing, but you know, that's going to be one for the steward to decide. The fastest lap at the moment currently with Balázs Erdely, 2:17.6. That will give him an extra 3 points in the championship, and that would be absolutely fantastic for the driver from Hungary. But it looks like Andrea Pagnini is feeling a little bit of pressure, and Ryan Woodrow goes through for 12th.
His recovery continues in 12th position. And what do we got here? Pass from Joop de Vos potentially. That is Conrad Kula running a little bit wide through Pouan. And oh, big jump over the curve. Kimi Räikkönen style. Well, that was a very easy move in the end for Joop de Vos in the Porsche. As Conrad Kula, the Polish driver, will exit stage right shortly. And let's listen into this one. Oh, through the gravel as well. In the 45, that's dropped him down to 9th position now for Conrad Kula. Did well to hang on to that one though and continue. Where are we up to? Coming up to half race distance now, 24 minutes into this race. And again, what a fascinating complexion we have up at the front of the field. Good to see Mihai Negs back out onto the racetrack after his lap 1 collision. And still on the lead lap, actually. A minute and a half behind the next car, but still on the lead lap nonetheless. Can't say the same for David Bosca, who, if we do go into the second half of the race, will officially be scoring no points in this one, because you need to complete 50% of the race distance in order to score points. And we're coming up to half race distance now.
We are indeed. So we still stick with this battle, you know, more towards the bottom of the field. Caden Richardson gaining there a little bit on Ryan Woodrow. The Mercedes against the Corvette, only one Mercedes user up against the only Corvette user in this championship. The field being very much dominated by 7 Fords entering and 6 Ferraris entering. We'll have to see what these kind of cars can do in terms of their differences, because with the Corvette, we'll see Caden Richardson going into the pit lane. So our producer is seemingly very intrigued to see what's going to be happening there. So Richardson will be starting the domino effect here at Spa-Francorchamps, turning into his pit box and getting that car serviced. So it looks like there will be tyres going onto that car, which is to be expected, because you want to be going through a brand new set. Let's, you know, burn another set of tyres. And then he will need to also top that fuel right up so he can get through to the end of the race. The Mercedes driver ventures out. I was about to say it's a front running engine as well, so it's going to be pretty powerful down the straight. And I've just seen there Federico Alberti in the pit lane. So suspectedly Alberti has taken all 4 tyres and topped his fuel right up. Richardson has decided to spend a little bit less time in the pit lane, and he is going to be finding himself right in the kind of no man's land. You're seeing the map on the right hand side there. That is the difference of potentially, you know, taking more fuel and another set of tyres on all 4 corners. You see the gap there is a good margin. But back with the lead of this one, Danny Neo still holding his own, but getting to that pit stop phase is going to be massive. We'll be seeing a bunch of changes. So, you know, if you want to leave for a quick coffee or a tea, ladies and gentlemen, you're best to maybe do it now.
7 seconds the difference between the stationary time between Richardson and Alberti, the latter taking a set of tyres. So that is the significant number that we need to monitor, because if any of these guys choose to take tyres, it'll be quite a significant drop. Is it enough for them to recover? Well, we're going to find out, because all 4 of the Fords coming in simultaneously. This is what we were talking about. That big thumping V8 at the front of that Ford is very, very thirsty. And interestingly, despite being in the slipstream throughout the entire race, Peterson, Hovsen and Erdely have not been able to eke out an extra lap of fuel, probably because it's such a long lap. So that doesn't help things. Now, this is going to be fascinating to see how they're going to manage this. It seems like none of them are taking tyres. Also into the pit lane is Ryan Woodrow, Cody Cosford, Conrad Kula, Joop de Vos, and Igor Kos as well. So the only cars that have stayed out are Luciano Whitvoet, Alexander Paulik, and Alex Panini as well. Oh, sorry, Andrea Panini. And look at that change for the lead in the pit lane as well, because Danny Neo has been usurped by Nikolai Peterson. So that is for the net race lead right now. When Luciano makes his stop, though, we will get a true inkling of the order.
We will do. And Luciano Whitboats, I think, is going to be the driver to keep an eye out for. Will there be an attack here from Danny Neo? Well, Nikolai Pedersen says, well, I'm going to have to go defensive here. But look up the inside. There goes Gregory Hoverson trying off, put that 18 car kick off of the gravel. And again, just looks like the Canadian can't seem to get past, and he's put himself at the expense there of Balazs Erdely. So already starting to hold each other up. Do you want to be doing that? There is a bigger picture here, boys. I know you're all competitors, but there is a big picture. There's a Ferrari at the front of the field that didn't pit with you, and if he just topped up his fuel, doesn't take any tyres, there is a potential for Luciano Whitboat to go and win his second race of the season, the first Silverstone. But he's making his way now towards Blanchimont corner through that fast left-hander. He'll have to go half off the track to just kind of keep that car flat through the next left-hander, use all the curb there, and then head on towards the bus stop chicane. He's trying to push the car as much as he possibly can, try and limit his fuel saving. Will he come into the pits? He absolutely does. Here we go. The Dutchman now responds in full force. Watch this space, ladies and gents.
Race leader into pit lane. That extra lap there for Luciano Whitboat. How is that going to serve him? Ticking along there at the pit lane speed limit. Seems to be right down the far end of the pit lane. And will he go for tyres? No, it doesn't seem like the car doesn't go up on its jacks. So he's doing the same as the Fords, carrying that set of tyres throughout this race. This is Nikolai Pedersen, who looks set to inherit the race lead here, as Danny Neo went very wide on the exit of the bus stop chicane. That's given an opportunity to Greg Hoverson. Here comes Whitboat out of the pit lane now and around the outside at La Source, but it's a much tighter line on the pit exit, but it's not going to be enough to try and take the lead. Is it going to be enough to hold on to second, though? Oh, not quite. Danny Neo goes through. Hoverson's going to take third position there as well, but Whitboat has been able to make a small gain in usurping Balazs Erdely, though. How long will that last as the Ferrari gets up to speed and the Ford has the tow down the Kemmel Straight? Look at those 5 cars. Absolutely incredible stuff. So Whitboat trying to get up to speed, side by side for second place, as well as Hoverson tries to usurp the erstwhile race leader, who has the inside line, but that doesn't matter because Hoverson goes right around the outside at Lecombe and takes second place away from Danny Neo, the pole sitter, demoted down to third, and Balazs Erdely was also able to regain that 4th place spot as well.
Absolutely huge tipping point into this moment in the race. You know, there was a big old opportunity there for Luciano Whitboat to try and potentially, you know, take a second, take a third, but he's unfortunately, with the power of the front engine Ford Mustang, he's managed to just fall behind Balazs Erdely. I don't know if there'll be a little bit of frustration behind the or under the neck of Luciano Whitboat. I'm being told a slow pit stop for him, but we'll head in towards the Pith Path chicane. Just looking here at Gregory Hoverson.
But what was interesting there, so Whitboat about a second slower than everyone else in terms of the stationary time, still managed to come out ahead of Balazs Erdely for a short while anyway. But interestingly, the change for the lead we saw between Pedersen and Danny Neo, 0.6 of a second was all Pedersen needed to usurp Danny Neo in that pit stop phase, though, in terms of the stationary time. So such fine margins there, determining victory and losing a place there, as I'm afraid it looks like Danny Neo's pain may not be over, because Erdely is looking very competitive there in 4th place.
Yeah, we're just having a look at the last lap time around. I think Pedersen did a pit exit of 2 minutes 45 compared to the 3 behind him who did 46s. Luciano Whitboat, you're right, was a second slower because he's done a 47, almost dead, 0.06. But it's just those little tens that we are looking at that is kind of, you know, deciphering. But, you know, I'm going to do kind of maybe play a bit of devil's advocate here and say, was Luciano Whitboat just filling up his fuel tank maybe a little bit higher to potentially just be able to go flat to the end? He knows the power of the Ford Mustangs already. He's been sitting behind them for so many laps, as Balazs Erdely is going to be wanting a place here on Danny Neo, the pole sitter, who has dropped from first down to second, and then after the pit stops, and he's now dropped to P4 here. So, well, sorry, no, he's kept P3 for now, but he's looking very, very close to falling off the edges of that podium. The car slightly sliding away here, so is Danny Neo overheating his tyres a little bit too much, and if he's batting away with Balázs Erdely continuously looking in his rear view mirror, will Pedersen and Hoverson be able to gallop away whilst Neo is just towing Erdely and Wittvogt around? This is a real decipher in this race with 15 minutes to go. Do not be going anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. This is going right to the checkered flag.
Shades of Daytona with those two Door Esports teammates working together so well at the front of the field. They are 1 and 2 once again, both of them race winners so far this season. In the last 2 races, it was Fuji for Pedersen, Daytona for Hoverson. He could well try and make it back-to-back, but he's currently behind his teammate. Danny Neo still holding on to that 3rd place spot, and Balázs Erdely trying to take it away from him. But yeah, interesting theory there about Luciano Wittvogt, because you would think because he's gone longer and the Ferrari uses less fuel anyway, that in theory he should have had a shorter stop than everyone in front of him. And so has he got a bit more pace to use at the end of the race? Remember, Joop de Vos having to lift and coast like crazy in Daytona because he miscalculated that fuel. Has Wittvogt got it right? Well, we'll find out in the very closing stages of this race, I would have thought, as lift and coast and fuel mileage comes a little bit more critical for everyone to the checkered flag. Interestingly there, though, Wittvogt keeping out of the slipstream of the Fords. Oh, that's an interesting one. WIT Eau Rouge. Let's see if he does it again down the Kemmel Straight. But this is the leaders. Nikolai Pedersen leading Greg Hoverson. Hoverson the Canadian, and Pedersen the Danish driver. And Wittvogt, the Dutchman, still in the tow of Balázs Erdely coming through Les Combes.
There is Igor Kos, who was pretty late to qualify, potentially sorting out a couple of issues. Would that be to a sim rig or maybe connection issues or something along those lines? But he's running really, really well. Yes, the Ford Mustang has proved to be kind of the cream of the crop in all of this. We've got 5 of the 6 running Ford Mustangs all running in the top 6. The only kind of non-Ford Mustang, of course, we've mentioned him about 100 times during this race, but it is Luciano Wittvogt, who has managed to find so much pace in that car as well. It's been incredible to see. That is a bit of a bash up Andrea Pagnini as well, it seems like. So I wonder if the Italian in the Porsche has got himself involved in a couple of skirmishes. We're just seeing there Federico Alberti, so he's in 13th. Alexander Pauly currently running in 14th. Not very pretty either. He's down 2 as well. Igor Kos, we saw right at the beginning, he was up 7 from his starting position. Mihai Neg is still running still running a little bit down the order after his earlier misdemeanor. This is Alexander Paulik coming through Speaker's Corner. Did he run a little bit wide? He has, through the gravel. So nothing too dramatic there for the German driver. But this is, again, Paulik. Has he gone off the road? He has. But he's, I think, earlier skirmishes for the Castrol-inspired livery. Yeah, and again, he's just struggling with the aerodynamics. You see there at the front, it's very much bent up.
So a bit of damage for Paulik there, sadly, in 14th position. See, oh, look at this for the lead now down the Kemmel Straight with Pedersen under massive pressure from Greg Hoverson. But I've got a feeling he's lifting out of the throttle there. Is he now in fuel-saving mode? This is what we saw throughout the entire race in Daytona between the two of them. And then in the last couple of laps, that's when they were able to really go hammer and tongs at each other. These two working together so well, and this is becoming very ominous for the remainder of the season. It is currently the championship leader out to the front of the field. His teammate, his friend, Greg Hoverson, 4th in the standings going into this one, sitting there in 2nd position. It was the narrowest of margins between them for the victory in Daytona, and it went the way of Hoverson. It was just over a 10th of a second between them, 0.107 seconds to be precise. And fun fact for you, that was actually smaller than the pole margin between those two. So you think about that, after 50 minutes of racing, there's less time between them than over a single lap. Extraordinary stuff as Peterson just dipped 2 wheels onto the gravel there as the pressure starting to get to him a little bit. How much does he trust his teammate there to not pounce on him? If he does make a little mistake, will the Canadian pounce on him? In the slipstream once again, going towards Blanchimont, I imagine Hoverson will be backing out just a bit because he's well within striking distance when they get to the chicane. And there was no defensive move there from Peterson. So this is still very much an orchestrated front between these two. And rightly so, because they're pulling away from the rest of the field. Danny Neo starting to become a little bit of a bottleneck there for Balázs Erdely and Luciano Whitvoet.
So through that source they go. Again, Nikolai Pedersen will be looking at that pressure. This is the battle for the 2nd win to kind of break that streak. You know, we were mentioning a lot at the beginning of the broadcast, you know, 3 different winners in 3 different races. That streak is set to be broken if these 2 drivers can keep it on the racetrack here. Gregory Hoverson, the winner last time at Daytona. He's gaining, he's finding that extra 5th gear before then just backing off the throttle. This is, I think, probably going right to the last lap as well. So they go through the Lafayette, the chicane. And what about Caden Richardson feeling a...
on the limiter in 5th gear, not even using 6th, going down the Kemmel Straight. That's how much he's not trying to pass his teammate at the moment. And I know that sounds counterintuitive to the sort of entertainment factor, but it's so interesting to watch those tactics because, I mean, we all know it's probably going to come down to the last lap. Will it come down to Lecombe? Will it come down to a lunge at the bus stop? I've seen plenty of drivers get it right, and I've seen even more get it wrong.
You definitely have to be on your absolute limit. You've really got to be judging these moments, you know, super correctly. In a competitive series such as, you know, the Crown Racing Series, you're just looking for that, you know, that extra mile, that kind of extra 10th here and there. I was just, you know, you mentioned that kind of banging off the limiter in 5th gear. I just kind of worried maybe that will, you know, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, because I'm pretty sure you know a bit more than I do about GT3 racing. They can use a bit more fuel whilst banging off the limiter in 5th gear, rather than, you know, maybe switching to 6th, letting the revs go low, and then just flicking down the gear. But again, Caden, we go back to Caden Richardson in that black and yellow and slashes of white here in that Mercedes. He's not kind of made the best impression here. He's gone up 4 places, which has been positive for the American driver. He doesn't seem to be able to catch a top 10 finish in this one. He's had a really strong run of results, 8th, 11th, 8th, 11th, and the kind of the chain is just continuing at this moment in time, running 8th in the championship. So, you know, it's been consistent, but it's been, at the moment in time, if we continue with the results, it will be 2 top 10s, 2 outside the top 10. And this time again, Nikolai Pedersen, and I think we can guess what's going to happen this time around. But you see in the background, that's getting pretty tasty, because Balázs Erdely has absolutely nothing to lose here. The black Mustang goes around the outside. There's contact between the two, and that's now going to see Luciano Whitvoet go up into 3rd place. Danny Neo will be throwing his hands up, thinking, what on earth are you doing? But Balázs Erdely, well, there's going to be a lot of questions surrounding that one, and that's going to be one for the stewards. They're going to be quite busy after tonight's race.
That's an absolute dream for Luciano Whitvoet. The doors have opened up for him now, and does he have any more raw speed to try and catch the leaders? We're going to see that moment again. It's Erdely on the left, Neo on the right, and Erdely, oh, there was space, but that has all the hallmarks of a racing incident, I'm afraid. Poor Danny Neo, who started on pole position, his first in the championship. Well, it looks like he's not even going to get a chance at the podium now, as we're going to see it again. And from onboard Danny Neo's perspective this time, yeah, I mean, I don't really know what more either of them could have done. I'm just looking to see, actually, because Danny Neo, yeah, best finish was 5th place last time out in Daytona. Balázs Early, I think, is going to get his 3rd, 4th place finish in 4 races, his 3rd in a row, actually, if it were to finish like this. What does that boy need to do to get onto the podium?
Absolutely no idea what he needs to do. So that's going to be pretty big problem there. This is going to be an absolute golden gate here for Luciano Vitvo. It's being a little bit covered by the digital kind of screens there, but you can just see that there's contact going through. All it needs to do, lift the throttle off about 5% more, and through he goes up into a podium position for the driver who won in Silverstone and is looking to be on the podium again for the first time since that race, which happened all the way back in November. But again, we now approach 5 minutes left of the race, so time has absolutely flown by. Is this the time for Nikolai Pedersen to be given the key? Well, sorry, my error. Gregory Hoverson to be given the golden key. Not quite there.
So 3.4 seconds the gap between these two Fords and Luciano Witvoet with 5 minutes to go. Last time around, Witvoet was 0.2 of a second slower, but of course was avoiding the incident between Neo and Erdely. And so we'll give him the benefit of the doubt on that one. And on this lap, the first clear one that Witvoet's had all race long, we'll see what the pace is. Slightly further back, Igor Kos on for his best finish since the opening round at Silverstone in 6th position. Cody Cosford, his best finish as well. He's finished 9th in every single race so far this season. He's currently in at 7th position, although does have Joop de Vos for very close company, but he can afford to drop that one place and still have it be his best finish. And Conrad Kula on for his first ever top 10 finish in a Crown Racing Series event. But for the remaining 4 minutes, I think we need to keep our eye on the leaders because it's absolutely fascinating stuff. And I'm sure they'll be very aware now that it's Witvoet who is the one chasing them. How is that going to affect the master plan between these two? They make their way back in towards the bus stop. It'll be 3.5 minutes to go, give or take, when they go over the timing line. Still Pedersen leading Hovsen.
Is indeed. And again, they'll head over the line for what seemingly but going to be lap 21 of this race. And again, we are now sitting at just 3 minutes and 10 seconds left of this. So 2 laps remaining here at the at Spa-Francorchamps. Go through the Ardennes forest, and again Nikolai Pedersen will ride on board with the Danish driver. Will now switch to his Ford counterpart, and Gregory Hoversen's had a brilliant run there off the Eau Rouge and Radion complex, but again he's just sitting in behind. He bump draft his teammate, but again will not be wanting that invite on toward the inside line. He'll have the calculations done to a T here. Do not be pushing your teammate through there. That could end in absolute disaster. And I'm sure there will be some stern words between the two teammates and their team manager at the end of this one, if that were came to blows. But here at the Corvette of what seems to be Woodrow up against Kula. Ferrari being put under a lot of pressure here, but Woodrow just trying to see if he can maybe just nip down the inside at one stage here. They'll head in towards this right-hander downhill. No move being done there. The GT3 is just a little bit too wide for moves to be inputted there.
Kula going for his first top 10 finish, but what's happening with the leaders? Because we've only got a lap and a half to go, and we are on the penultimate lap of the race now. 3 races so far this season, and our 3 winners are in the top 3 as it stands. But Witvoet is going to need some assistance from these 2 Fords in order to try and close that gap. Last time around, 2:18.2 for Peterson, 2:18.2 for Hovsen, 2:18.2 for Whitvoot as well. Absolutely nothing between them in terms of the raw pace of these three cars, and it's going to be white flag being shown to these two as they make their way towards the timing line for the penultimate time. And is Hovsen going to have a look? Surely they are absolutely flat out to the flag now. If they do start squabbling, then that's going to be a dream for Whitvoot. But he has lost a little bit of ground on this lap, 3.6 seconds as they go into the final lap of the race now. And it is game on once again between the two NGK Sparkplug Fords of Nikolai Peterson and Greg Hovsen on the final lap here at Spa.
Exit of La Source, and Gregory Hovsen is going to be looking for that exit. This is going to be crucial. Eau Rouge and Radion on the final time of this race. 22 laps have gone, and now we're seeing the Canadian getting a great exit. Pedersen trying to put that car in the middle of the road. Where will Hovsen go? He'll keep
still not doing it.
He's still not going for the move. Will he just do it as late as he possibly can? No, he doesn't. He's still a little bit kind of fuel saving here. Is he just trying to catch his teammate off guard here, thinking that's the obvious hotspot overtaking place, but I'm going to do it in a different area where my teammate isn't expecting it? Well, one thing here, Gregory, you've got to do it very, very, how should I put it? In a way obvious. You can't collide with your teammate. That's the golden rule in motorsport. You cannot collide with your teammate. You've got to kind of give him the element of surprise, but you cannot do it, make it rough or whatever. This is going, I think, to the final chicane here, Chris. Oh, wide moment from Peterson.
Right. I think you're right. I think Hovsen is saving something for that final braking zone. So far, Peterson has been able to avoid the curse of the championship leader, which has been for the last two races. Whoever's leading the championship has been out on lap one. Well, David Bosger took that one 50 minutes ago. What is going to happen here between the two Fords? There's only one braking zone left in this race. They come out of curve, Paul Frere. Hovsen going for back-to-back victories, both of them going for their second victory in the Crown Racing Series. And it seems like Peterson's lifting. I think he's letting him go early. They're side by side towards Blanchimont for the final time. And Hovsen's just got half a car length in front around the outside of Blanchimont. Oh, extraordinary. And that's going to give him the inside line for the bus stop chicane. An unbelievable move at the final couple of corners here, and Greg Hovsen is going to make it back-to-back victories in the Crown Racing Series. Extraordinary stuff once again.
Unbelievable. I think Nikolai Pedersen was fuel saving. You can tell by the attitude of the car. I think he was really slow because he was still fuel saving, wants to make sure he made it to the end. Conrad Kula in the battle for ninth place just keeps ahead of Ryan Woodrow, and that will really put a big smile on Conrad Kula's face. His first top 10 of this championship. Cody Cosford just losing out by 5 thousandths of a second to Huub de Vos. Now, I don't know if that's down to his internet connection issues, but if that is true, we've kind of missed an absolutely superb finish.
Extraordinary stuff with the celebratory donuts between the two Door Esports teammates. I mean, that is an extraordinary finish. And what was it? 200ths of a second in the end between them. So I think that takes the cake for the closest winning margin. Oh no, sorry, 0.2 of a second in the end. So it doesn't quite beat the Daytona record there, but once again, Hovsen and Peterson bringing all the fireworks. Luciano Whitvoot on the podium for the first time since his victory at the opening meeting of the season at Silverstone as well. And Balash Erdely, his third consecutive fourth place finish. That guy's got to be so frustrated with missing out on a podium once again. This is the very narrow finish between Huub de Vos and Cody Cosford. And poor Huub de Vos doesn't even know where he's supposed to be putting his car because Cosford's blinking so much. But it is de Vos who pips Cosford there by 5 thousandths of a second to 7th place. Not the result de Vos would have been hoping for, having come here third in the championship. But nonetheless, Cody Cosford his best finish of the season in 8th place. The same for Conrad Kula, his first top 10 finish in the championship, with Ryan Woodrow completing the top 10. An awful lot for Claire Cottingham and Ed Spencer to go through in the post-race show. So do keep an eye on the Crown Racing Series YouTube channel, because that will be on a separate stream to this one. But here's the official results. Greg Hoverson by 0.2 of a second to Nikolai Peterson, and Luciano Witvoet completing the podium. It's the Dutchman's first podium since Silverstone in the opening meeting of the season. But remember, Peterson, there is going to be a little bit of an asterisk next to that second place finish after the first lap contact with David Bosger. We'll see what the independent stewards come up with that one. Balash Erdley with his third consecutive 4th place finish. Danny Neo matching his best finish of the season as well in 5th position. Igor Kos also getting his best finish in the championship. Hugh DeVos 7th. Cody Cosford and Conrad Kula with career best results. And Ryan Woodrow inside the top 10. Then it was Caden Richardson, Andrea Panini, Federico Alberti, and Alexander Paulik with Mihai Neg. Not much could be done from the rear of the field after the first lap contact. And David Bosger scoring no points for the second race in a row after a second consecutive lap 1 calamity. That is all from myself, Chris Stevens, and Adam Reed here on the race broadcast. We'll be back in action on the 10th of May when the Crown Racing Series visits Autodromo Nazionale Monza for the penultimate race of the season. In the meantime, we will hand over to Claire Cottingham and Ed Spencer for the post-race show.